A reading from the book of Isaiah. Today is January 6th. Our reading from Isaiah is chapter 37. When King Hezekiah heard this, he rent his clothes and covered himself with sackcloth and went into the house of the Lord. He also sent Eliakim, who was in charge of the palace, Shebna the scribe, and the senior priests covered with sackcloth, to the prophet Isaiah son of Amoz. They said to him, "Thus said Hezekiah, this day is a day of distress, of chastisement, and of disgrace. The babes have reached the birth stool, but the strength to give birth is lacking. Perhaps the Lord your God will take note of the words of Rabshakeh, whose his master, the king of Assyria, has sent to blaspheme the living God, and will mete out judgment for the words that the Lord your God has heard, if you will offer up prayer for the surviving remnant." When King Hezekiah's ministers came to Isaiah, Isaiah said to them, "Tell your master as follows, Thus said the Lord, do not be frightened by the words of blasphemy against me that you have heard from the minions of the king of Assyria. I will delude him. He will hear a rumor and return to his land, and I will make him fall by the sword in his land." The Rabshakeh, meanwhile, heard that the king had left Lachish. He turned back and found the king of Assyria attacking Libnah. But the king of Assyria learned that King Tirkah of Nubia had come out to fight him. And when he heard, he sent messengers to Hezekiah, saying, "Tell this to King Hezekiah of Judah. Do not let your God, on whom you are relying, mislead you into thinking that Jerusalem will not be delivered into the hands of the king of Assyria. You yourself had heard what the kings of Assyria have done to all the lands, how they have annihilated them. And can you escape? Were the nations that my predecessors destroyed, Gozan, Haran, Rezeph, and the Bethdanites in Telassar, saved by their gods? Where is the king of Hamath, and the king of Arpad, and the king of Lair, Sepharvaim, Hena, and Ivah?" Hezekiah received the letter from the messengers and read it. Hezekiah then went up to the house of the Lord and spread it out before the Lord. And Hezekiah prayed to the Lord, "O Lord of hosts, enthroned on the cherubim, you alone are God of all the kingdoms of earth. You made the heavens and the earth. O Lord, incline your ear and hear. Open your eye and see. Hear all the words that Sennacherib had sent to blaspheme the living God. True, O Lord, the kings of Assyria have annihilated all the nations and their lands, and have committed their gods to the flames and have destroyed them, for they are not gods, but man's handiwork of wood and stone. But now, O Lord our God, deliver us from his hands, and let all the kingdoms of the earth know that you, O Lord, alone are God." Then Isaiah son of Amoz sent this message to Hezekiah. "Thus said the Lord, the God of Israel, to whom you have prayed concerning King Sennacherib of Assyria. This is the word that the Lord had spoken concerning him. Fair maiden Zion despises you, she mocks at you. Fair Jerusalem shakes her head at you. Whom have you blasphemed and reviled? Against whom made loud your voice and haughtily raised your eyes? Against the Holy One of Israel. Through your servants you have blasphemed my Lord, because you thought, thanks to my vast chariotry, it is I who have climbed to the highest mountain, to the remotest parts of the Lebanon, and have cut down its loftiest cedars, its choicest cypresses, and have reached its highest peaks, its densest forest. It is I who have drawn and drunk water. I have dried up with the soles of my feet all the streams of Egypt. Have you not heard? Of old I planned that very thing. I designed it long ago, and now have fulfilled it, and it has come to pass. Laying fortified towns waste in desolate heaps. Their inhabitants are helpless, dismayed and shamed. They were but grass of the field and green herbage, grass of the roofs that is blasted before the east wind. I know your stayings and your goings and comings, and how you have raged against me. Because you have raged against me, and your tumult has reached my ears, I will place my hook in your nose and my bit between your jaws, and I will make you go back by the road by which you came. And this is the sign for you. This year you eat what grows of itself, and the next year what springs from that, and in the third year sow and reap and plant vineyards and eat their fruit. And the survivors of the house of Judah will have escaped shall renew its trunk below and produce boughs above. For a remnant shall come forth from Jerusalem, survivors from Mount Zion. The zeal of the Lord of hosts shall bring this to pass. Assuredly, thus said the Lord concerning the king of Assyria, He shall not enter the city. He shall not shoot an arrow at it, or advance upon it with a shield, or pile up a siege mound against it. He shall go back by the way he came. He shall not enter the city, declares the Lord. I will protect and save this city for my sake and for the sake of my servant David. That night an angel of the Lord went out and struck down 185,000 in the Assyrian camp, and following morning they were all dead corpses. So King Sennacherib of Assyria broke camp and retreated and stayed in Nineveh. While he was worshipping in the temple of his god Nisroch, he was struck down with the sword by his sons Adramelech and Sarezer. They fled to the land of Ararat, and his son Esarhaddon succeeded him as king.